I don't have that, so I'll just rechange that. So it's Deputy Higgins and Deputy Donnelly. Deputy Higgins.
Yes, I noticed in my watch there's 12 minutes left. Cahir,
yeah, I'll try and accommodate up to 7:30, that's fine.
Cahir, it really does stretch credibility beyond the limit that the right-wing political parties in this state and virtually the entire capitalist press hail as a glorious triumph an arrangement that shackles the Irish people to a gigantic millstone of toxic Anglo-Irish bank debt of €31 billion and interest over a 40-year period. And the consequences: ongoing savage austerity that is already destroying livelihoods, destroying living standards, destroying communities, destroying individuals. And it bears saying again, these were the private gambling losses of bankers and bondholders as they speculated wildly in the Irish property bubble in this state in pursuit of greed-driven super profits. Now, if the political establishment of this state, the capitalist press, and the establishment of the European Union and the European Central Bank were ever guided by a moral compass, truly that compass has crashed irretrievably when they deem it just, or a victory even, that generations of Irish people should be lashed to a treadmill of private debt. Truly, in putting the profits of the bondholders before the well-being of the majority in society, the present-day political and media establishment in this state display a moral sense just as perverted as their predecessors in the Irish church and state displayed in a previous era, in the era of the incarceration, for example, of young women, in the Irish version of the gulags known as the Magdalene laundries, something which tragically we've heard much about in the last week. That Ireland was a state groaning under the weight of moral strictures, but at the rotten heart of the Irish establishment at that era, there was no morality. Likewise, we have the establishment of the EU loudly proclaiming today that at the heart of its institutions are the values of solidarity, equality, justice and democracy. Shameless mendacity when the cold reality reveals that the democratic rights of hundreds of millions of European citizens are subjected and subjugated to a dictatorship of the financial markets, and the vindication of rights is reserved first and foremost for the bondholder, the speculator and the vulture capitalists, but 25 million citizens of the EU languish in unemployment, while tens of millions more suffer from the savage austerity designed to salvage the market system. Last June, it was loudly proclaimed by the government that an EU summit had decided to break the link between private banking debt and state debt. That promise is cynically shattered in exactly the opposite process with this deal, where the Irish state takes all the responsibility, lock, stock and barrel, for toxic private banking debt. Yet, in the face of all this, we had the leadership of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions leading tens of thousands of workers in marches around the country on Saturday, the leadership begging for kindness from this heartless EU financial system while being silent on and actively distracting attention from their allies in the Irish Labour Party, who shamefully implement troika austerity and crush the Irish people with these toxic debts. Cahir, look, the most serious movement that is critical now to be built against the destructive austerity in this state is the campaign against the odious property taxes and other austerity taxes. Hundreds of thousands of ordinary men and women are participating. Yesterday they brought their opposition to many council chambers where Fine Gael and Labour councillors were in hiding. pointing to the need for working people, pensioners and the unemployed to deploy their people power and the power of workers to withdraw their labour to demand not a penny more to the bondholders, an end to crushing austerity, abolition of the hated property tax, and a European financial system where the major financial institutions are in public ownership, are in democratic control, are run for the well-being of the majority, not the profits of the tiny elite.
Thank you very much, Deputy Higgins.